Hi, and welcome to this PBIS training focused on discipline data. My name is Erin Swoboda, and I have the honor of serving as the assistant principal at Chanhassen High School, and I will be taking you through this training today. The luxury of a recorded training is that you as a team or as an individual can stop the recording whenever you'd like and come right back to it. Or come back to it later and have the opportunity to discuss what you're hearing with your team through the ability to stop and continue. So I encourage you to do that as you feel like that would be appropriate. As you just look at this quick little roadmap, we are on the 12th component of Tier 1. So just a roadmap so you can see that piece. And then the most important piece of the discipline data outcome is that you as a team or as a building are able to have instantaneous access to graph reports that summarize discipline data organized by the frequency of the problem behavior, and the events are by behavior, location, time of day, and individual student. So for me, the big pieces are that it's instantaneous and that you have it all kind of at your fingertips. So you can use the data readily, and you're not spending time collecting data, you're spending time analyzing it and problem solving. Just like with anything we kind of look at around data or around functionality of schools in general, you want to look at all these components together so you can maximize your outcome. So systems in place combined with the data that you know and the practices that are being implemented, when those three things are overlapping, you hit that star in the middle so that you can truly work towards the outcomes that you desire. So we'll start this presentation with a little quote. If we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine, which is a fun quote and I think speaks to what, for me anyway, was my original thought about data when I started in education, which was the data is kind of nice to have, but I kind of lead with my heart and I know what the kids feel. I know what they are thinking because I see it, I hear it, I feel it from them. And I don't need the data to know those things. What I have learned is that I do need the data so I can see the whole picture and so I can make decisions based on facts and truths and the numbers. And then that allows me to truly lead from the heart once I have that information. So here's some definitions, which I think are just good for stage setting. So data are the many sources of information that we use to make decisions about how we allocate our resources of time, attention for teaching, redirecting, prompting, and reinforcing behaviors. It can come in many forms, such as office discipline referrals, attendance records, grades, surveys, verbal feedback, and observations. And it must be documented and shared to be the most effective in action planning. Then when we look at the rationale about why, I spoke to it a little bit, but it allows us to look at the problem more objectively. So without data, we're likely to make ambiguous or emotionally driven decisions, which I, for one, was totally guilty of. And it can be used for identifying and planning to address problems, but also celebrating success and keeping us all accountable. So it really is an asset for us as we continue in education. So why use data-based decision making? Well, it does help us to ask the right questions, but it doesn't give us the answers. It just allows us to dig in and say, well, I wonder why this is occurring. It helps us identify problems and refine them and define the questions that lead to our solutions. And then I love this part at the end here, but it helps us place the problem in the context rather than the students in the middle of the problem. So it really just helps us look at like what is happening. Not Erin is a problem, but here is the action that we're seeing or the issue. And Erin is just the person involved in it, but it's not about her, it's about what we're seeing. It's about what's being communicated by the data. Okay, so now this is the luxury of being able to pause. So we're going to have you pause and complete a brief activity. So find a PBIS team partner and think about these things. What are different sources of data that you have in your classroom or your school or your setting? And then how comfortable are you at accessing and interpreting these data points? So think about everything from test scores to behavior data to attendance. Which things are you more comfortable with? Which things are you not? And why? Go ahead and pause and answer those questions with a partner. Okay, and when we think about data, there's really three types of data or three pieces for us to really think about. The first is effort, and what that is relating to or trying to get at is what is the current status of your system. So where are you currently at, and how do you know? So ways you can find out that information is through the TFI or the SAS, also just through any feedback or surveys you have, conversations with teachers, observations. The next piece is fidelity. So when you're putting things in place, are those things happening in the way that you intended them to happen? Are programs running as intended? Are even data pieces being collected as intended? Are courses being taught the way that we've intended them to be? So think about those pieces. You can also use a TFI and SAS for that. And then outcome. So are those things working that you put in place, and how do you know? Some ways to determine that are using ODRs. You can use your SECO or check and check out data or check and connect data, kind of general point sheets, suspensions, expulsion data, attendance data, grades and test score data. And then this is a piece we're going to dig into a little bit more. This is the data that you want to be able to be at your fingertips and readily accessible, so you can know where you're at. These data examples all come from Swiss, but you can use any system that you're using needs to just be able to create data like this so that you can really analyze where you're at. So the first one, you're looking at average referrals or ODRs per day per month. So as you can pull those things out, then you can easily see them. Second one is referrals by problem behavior. So as you look at those charts, like what is our number one problem behavior? And these things all allow you to start getting more precise in your problem identification and in your analysis of what our needs are. Again, just a bunch of examples: referrals by time of day, when are we seeing the most referrals, what grade level struggling the most, and then I think the referral by student is so critical. At Chan, we look at our top 20% as far as increase in referrals, and we run an algorithm and compare that with attendance and grades, and just look at who are those kids and who is their person. Do they have support? Has someone reached out to them? And if not, we make sure that that's happening. But that referral by student becomes increasingly important, or we have found to become really important and an action item for us. And then additional reports, you can look at the same kind of data over years, or like we like to look at it from when we started Pbis, those previous years before that, implementation years, and then we kind of had a little bit of a dip, like a restructure of administration and of the team. Where is our data then? Where is it now? And then what are the intricacies within that? So that's a great way to look at it. Referrals by staff, we look at constantly for a lot of reasons. But one of the most important is looking at our climate and culture and where our beliefs at around Pbis, and are we taking care of our kids? So we look at that constantly. And then more just additional reports, like the one here on the bottom, looking at what level of support or needs are there when you think of this in relation to the RTI triangle. Students on IEPs, looking at this and breaking it down by ethnicity. There's so many ways to look at the data, but the most important pieces are that, one, you're looking at the data, you're becoming data literate as a team as far as understanding what pieces you're looking at and being able to just start asking the whys or the what ifs or the what does this mean questions. And then here there are just lots and lots of ways to look at data, but the hope of this is that you can see that there's all different ways that you can pull, and usually any question you have, you can work to get answered through the data components. So some questions when you're thinking about all those different examples of data that you just saw that would help you know, is your system working for you? One, can I enter in a referral easily? So when you're for example, we use Infinite Campus. Can someone enter a behavior referral in there in 30 seconds or less? And yes, our answer is yes for that. But if not, why is that, and how can we help with that? Can reports be generated quickly and easily, less than 5 seconds? And do you or do the members of your team have access to core data reports? And what other reports do you feel like you would need access to that you maybe don't? Maybe there's some grade reports you would like access to, some general attendance reports that aren't related to behavior. And then we kind of talked about this, but some general consensus around data is like that it has to be numbers or it has to be test scores, and it doesn't have to be or should not be just those things. So really looking at the whole picture is getting that better data swipe. So attendance, grades, those things are very important. Health office visits, we look at win time, what I need time. Are students using that? Are they accessing peer tutors? Are they accessing their counselor? And then just surveys and perception data in general. Okay, so you're going to get a little bit of time here to pause the recording and look at what are your data sources and what action steps based on that do you think you need to be able to get the correct data sources or to take steps towards that. So go ahead and pause and work through that. Okay, and then welcome back. So after you've done that sheet, what you want to start thinking about is data analysis. And things to think about, or those questions are, is there a problem? What areas or systems are involved? Are there many students or a few? So this is getting to making sure their identification is precise in detail. What kind of problems, behaviors are occurring? And when are these problems likely to occur? So this is, when we look at this statement here, this is what we would call a precision statement versus a primary statement. And it gets to the 5 W's without just saying an overarching behavior in the lunchroom's out of control. It's specific about what's happening. So, for example, there are 25% more ODRs for aggression in the cafeteria this month than last year. These are more likely to occur during first lunch with 15 8th grade students, and the aggression is related to getting access to the new lunch line options. Again, covering those 5 W's, and the final one, why, being our hypothesis about what is happening and why we believe that's in place. So we're going to have you pause again and think about, do you have efficient data systems? So go through this worksheet and answer these questions as a team. So are we collecting the right information? Yes or no? Action plan. Go through those questions and just allow yourself to generate conversation around that. Ask each other questions and use this kind of as a roadmap for continuous planning. All right. So as we think about continuous improvement, you want to make sure that you're just thinking about those precision statements and do you have the data in place? And if not, how are you going to get there? So as we think about the TFI self-assessment now, your kind of end piece of number 12, just go through and go ahead and as a team, think through where are you at or as an individual in these categories that the components of 12. And then that will help guide your next steps as you've done throughout this presentation. So with that, trying to make these short and sweet so you get everything you need, but are focusing more on the conversation than anything else so that your team has that time together. Shout out to everyone on this screen and appreciation to all of them for their contributions to this presentation. Again, my name is Erin Swoboda. I'm from Chanhassen High School, and I'm very happy to talk about Pbis with anyone that wants to chat about it, so reach out at any time. Otherwise, good luck on your journey, and I look forward to working together soon.